Franklin Pierce. He was popular, he was charming, and he was elected with one big job: keep the United States from tearing itself apart. But his presidency is now seen as the moment that didn't just fail to stop the Civil War, but actually pushed the nation right into its path.
And that's the big question we're tackling today, isn't it? How does a leader who is given a clear mission for peace and unity end up overseeing one of the most violent and divisive chapters in American history?
You see, to really understand the collapse, we have to start with the promise. When Franklin Pierce was elected, there was this genuine, nationwide hope that he was the guy, the one who could finally calm things down. And on paper, Pierce looked perfect for the job. I mean, the man had a resume. He'd served in the House and the Senate. He was a brigadier general in the Mexican-American War. Plus, he was known for his charm, his speaking skills. He was really the ideal compromise candidate for the Democrats at the time.
And we're not talking about a squeaker of an election. He won in an absolute landslide. The country basically handed him this massive mandate to lead, and more than anything, to unify. So the expectations? They were sky high.
So Pierce steps into the presidency with this incredible momentum. Politically, things are looking bright, but personally, his life was about to be completely shattered. Just weeks before his inauguration, Pierce, his wife, and their 11-year-old son, Benny, were in a horrific train accident, and Benny was killed right in front of them. It was an unthinkable tragedy that cast this dark shadow over his entire time in office. Many historians agree he just never really recovered from it. And yet, somehow, through all that grief, his administration did manage some real accomplishments early on. He oversaw the Gadsden Purchase, which got the U.S. land from Mexico for a future railroad. He was a big believer in manifest destiny, pushing for expansion, opening up trade. He even modernized parts of the military and the government. You know, on paper, it looked like he was getting things done. But then came the one decision, the one act that would completely overshadow everything else and put the nation on a collision course with war. It all came down to this one piece of legislation: the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Now, the idea it introduced was called popular sovereignty, which sounds pretty democratic, right? Just let the people who move to a new territory vote for themselves on whether to allow slavery. What could go wrong? Well, it turned out to be political dynamite. To get why this was so explosive, you gotta remember what was in place before. For over 30 years, the Missouri Compromise had kept a very fragile peace. It drew a literal line across the country. Slavery was banned north of this line. Simple. The Kansas-Nebraska Act didn't just redraw the line, it completely erased it. And in doing so, it turned every single new territory into a potential battleground. So instead of being a clever compromise, this act basically lit a match and tossed it into a warehouse full of gunpowder. It turned the huge question of slavery's expansion into a bunch of small local elections. And that meant winning the vote was everything. People were willing to fight and even kill to win it. And that is exactly what happened. The theoretical argument that was happening in Washington, D.C. was about to become a brutal, violent reality out on the American frontier. With the rules of the game suddenly changed, it was a mad dash. A frantic race began, with pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups practically begging their followers to flood into Kansas, to claim the land, and, more importantly, to win the vote. But these folks weren't showing up as peaceful neighbors looking to start a new life. No, they came armed, they came organized, and they saw each other as the enemy. The clashes started almost immediately. It didn't take long for arguments to turn into guerrilla warfare. A brutal mini-civil war broke out across the territory, and the whole country started calling it Bleeding Kansas, a terrifying symbol of a nation coming apart at the seams. So where was President Pierce in all of this? Well, he completely failed to get control of the chaos. And then he made it worse. He actually sided with the pro-slavery government, even though there was tons of evidence of voter fraud. His actions didn't calm anyone down. They poured gasoline on the fire. He enraged the North, shattered people's trust in the government, and in the end, lost the support of his own party. The damage was done. That initial promise of unity was gone, totally replaced by a legacy of deep and what would become irreversible division. I mean, when you just lay it all out, the fallout is staggering. The Kansas-Nebraska Act, it hit the fast-forward button on the Civil War. Bleeding Kansas wrecked the government's credibility. The political infighting he caused led to the complete collapse of the Whig Party and the birth of the brand new anti-slavery Republican Party.
He did the exact opposite of what he was elected to do.
But if you want the final verdict from his own time, here it is. In 1856, the Democratic Party wouldn't even re-nominate him for president. That is a stunning rejection for a sitting president, and it just shows how catastrophic his term was seen, even back then.
All of this leaves us with a really fundamental question about leadership, doesn't it? Franklin Pierce almost certainly intended to preserve the Union, but what he delivered was violence and division. So it makes you wonder, when we look back, what really defines a legacy? Good intentions or disastrous results?